Good evening and welcome to the 2021 Belleville Mayoral debate. My name's Jeffrey Couch, editor and general manager of the Belleville News-Democrat, sponsor of tonight's debate. We're honored to host this important event and thank the candidates and all of you for your participation. We hope tonight's debate gives you information you need to help make an informed decision during Tuesday's election. We also urge you to visit our 2021 voter guide at bnd.com to learn more about the candidates. It's now my pleasure to introduce tonight's moderator, BND Politics and State Affairs reporter, Kelsey Landis.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kelsey Landis, and thank you for joining us this evening. Before we get started, I'm going to take a few moments just to introduce our candidates and explain the rules and format for tonight's debate. So tonight we welcome in alphabetical order by last name, write-in candidate Jeffrey J.D. Dixon, incumbent Belleville Mayor Mark Eckert, and challenger Patty Gregory. We'll start out with 2-minute opening statements from each of our candidates. To determine the order of those statements, before the debate tonight, we used a 6-face die to randomly determine that order, and it'll be the same in the question and answer portion of our debate. So Ms. Gregory will go first, followed by Mr. Eckert, and then Mr. Dixon. We'll have a total of either 9 or 12 questions, depending on how much time we have. So either 3 or 4 questions will be directed at each candidate. Some questions came from B&D reporters, while others were submitted from readers. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to questions that are directed to them, and then each opponent will have 1 minute for a rebuttal. At my discretion, I may allow additional time for answers or rebuttals, but the candidates don't have to use all of their time. I may also ask follow-up questions to further the conversation or bring clarity to a candidate's position. The producer for this debate, who's behind the scenes, will keep the candidates on mute when they are not speaking, just to prevent any environmental noise from interfering with our conversation. We trust the candidates will adhere to the time limits, but we may also mute candidates who disregard the rules. We'll finish our debate tonight with 2-minute closing statements, again from each of the candidates. That order will be Mr. Dixon will go first, followed by Mr. Eckert, and then Ms. Gregory. So with that, I'd like to begin our first opening statement, and I'd like to also remind the candidates to please wait a few seconds before you begin speaking, just so we have a chance to unmute you. So please go ahead, Ms. Gregory. You have 2 minutes for your opening statements. Go ahead, Patty, whenever you're ready. Patty, we're ready for your opening statements. For your 2 minutes have begun. Patty, can you hear us? I think we'll switch to Mr. Eckert for his opening statements, and then we'll come back to Patty. It seems like she's having some trouble hearing us. Can we switch to Mayor Eckert for his opening statements?
Good evening. First of all, I want to thank the BND for hosting this once again. I've had the privilege to be a part of these debates in the past, and they've always been very, I think, well organized. And I think, as Mr. Couch said, gives the public a chance to learn more about the candidates so they're informed voters. I'd like to start tonight by saying thank you to my family and all the friends who've worked with me over the years, and to my staff and to all the aldermen I've worked with over a number of years. I'm running for mayor this term on next Tuesday, April 6th, because I love Belleville. And I simply have a lot of things on my agenda and the city's agenda and our vision that we'd like to get completed. I believe that experience matters, especially this year after we've been through COVID-19. We've been through many, many small businesses hurting. We've been through financial problems because of our state of Illinois. In fact, we even fear that there's more possibly coming. And then in City of Belleville here, we're also worried about the possible loss of TIF 3. These are all some traumatic financial challenges for Belleville, and I worry about them. But in spite of that, we've stayed in the bucket early on. I want to be around the next 4 years to help us finish the streetscape from 12th to 17th, the improvements on Lebanon Avenue. I want to be here when we open Lofts on the Square, this exciting project. And I want to be here to continue to encourage Belleville residents to just continue to volunteer and be a part of the excitement of this 207-year-old city. We have a lot of good things happening in Belleville. Thank you. Was I done?
Thank you very much, Mayor Eckert. Well, I think, Patty, can you hear us now? We'll move to Mr. Dixon while we continue to help Patty get her audio fixed. Mr. Dixon, would you like to proceed with your opening statements, please?
Hi, everyone. First off, I'd like to thank Belleville News-Democrat for inviting me to this debate and hosting this debate so that people can hear the issues and what we plan to bring to them to help them out in this community. I'd like to thank everybody that has been here for me and helped me in this campaign as well. It's about the people, and that's why we're here. So thank you again for inviting me to this debate. We are at a pivotal moment in our country's history, and it's time for our city to face the issues and challenges of racial, social, economic, and environmental justice reform to stop ignoring the state of the Black community in Belleville. The working class citizens deserve a mayor and local government that will advocate for them and put their issues first. The COVID-19 pandemic has devastated our world, and our citizens feel it. From jobs and small businesses being shut down, from workers losing wages to take care of their families, to navigating the new world that COVID has thrusted us into. My entire campaign has been focused on advocating for the working class and the Black community to bring change to a system that must put the people first. We can't continue down the same path and use the same old style of politics that has got us where we are today. It's time to take a new, progressively proactive approach to bring systemic change for racial and social justice reform in our local government and laws to ensure safety and equality for all. And I know through the power of the people that we'll be able to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. It looks like we're still waiting for Patty to fix her problem. So I think what we'll do is just continue with the questions, and we'll have to give Patty as much time as you all get to do her opening statements and answer the question. I think she's still working on it. So let's go ahead and move to our first question. And thank you, gentlemen, for your opening statements. So, Mr. Eckert, this question goes to you first, and you'll have 2 minutes to respond to this. And I'll repeat these for Patty when she comes back. So we all know that businesses have struggled enormously during the pandemic. What have we learned from the pandemic as a city, and how can the city of Belleville help businesses recover using grants and assistance specifically from local, state, and federal governments?
Thanks.
You have 2 minutes. Thank you.
I think that the city of Belleville, like all cities, has learned a great deal during this horrible past year. But we have, I believe, stepped up to the plate in many outstanding ways to try to help small businesses, to let them know we're there for them. A lot of our restaurants and bars were hurt very badly. We extended outside dining. We closed some streets partially, half a block, to try to make it when the weather was nice and when they were stopped from being inside. We have worked with the state of Illinois, and I have been on, during the beginning of the pandemic, I was on a conference call once or twice every week with the governor's office and the county health department, trying to find out ways we could help businesses through grants. Our economic development department issued some. We've referred many to the grants department at St. Clair County. We tried to share as much information as possible. Our Chamber of Commerce did an excellent job sharing information and being a source to the over 600 members that they have here in the Belleville area. I feel like for something that we didn't really think to prepare for over the years, something of this magnitude, a pandemic, I think we did a good job, but certainly not everything. And I'm certainly excited about the other possibilities throughout this next year. There's some more money we believe is coming. We're yet to learn about how we can use it, and we're looking forward to sharing it with as many businesses and ways to lift up the community as possible. This year has been difficult. It's been some difficult decisions. We've had to enforce the safety side of it, which has been difficult. I even had a threat on my life. And the worst of it was when my wife and I got COVID after a year of being so careful. It was horrible. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. Thank you.
Mr. Dixon, you have 1 minute to respond.
First off, I like to say I'm sorry about the threat that you received on your life. Whether for whatever reason was, whether it was political reasons or whatever reasons, that should never happen. In politics, it's about voicing your opinion, not reacting in a violent way. So my prayers go out to you and your family, and I pray that you stay safe and nothing comes your way. So I'm sorry about that. In rebuttal to his question is, to his credit, nobody was ready for COVID. COVID didn't come out of nowhere, but it came. And it was something that was unprecedented, something that we weren't ready for. So every city across the country had challenges in it. And of course, you heard the the opposition from the people here in Belleville, from small businesses being shut down, people losing wages and jobs, and just trying to come out of the devastation of COVID. And it was hard for any city. And moving forward, we've learned a lot. We've gained more knowledge of what COVID does, the elements of COVID. We have the vaccine now. So going forward, I think it is a positive future going forward. I think now with more information, we'll be able to use more innovative ideas to keep small businesses open, as well as help the people and ensure that they stay housed, ensure that the bills stay on because of the effects of COVID, of the working class losing wages. So going forward with the information and the new information that we have with it, I see that we'll be able to get back to some sort of normality, which we'll never get back to straight normal, which in a lot of cases we don't need to be. But going forward, I think it's a bright future as far as the new information that we have, and especially with the vaccine out now.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to give you a little bit extra time on that question. I'm curious, you said you expect some more money, some more assistance coming in from higher levels of government, and you're hoping to find out how you can use those. Can you be a little more specific about how you hope to use them?
I am very hopeful that we're going to see, and we have not seen the paperwork on this yet, but I'm very hopeful that we're going to see more money that could be directed to small business to help them, because we know that while we're very appreciative of the stimulus money that they've received, some of them got more than others, and some of them were in a better place to apply at a certain time quickly. But we know that there's still a lot of hurt. I'd be really remiss also, Kelsey, if I didn't say in this section talking about COVID, we have a great deal of gratitude to our healthcare workers here in Belleville who really put their lives on the line and fought this terrible disease. And I'm proud of the community, though, the way they stepped up to bring in donations and food to the hospital workers in different places. Sometimes good comes out of terrible situations, and we've certainly seen a lot of good people opening their hearts and their pocketbooks to share.
I think we'll move on, Mr. Mayor, but thank you. I think we share those sentiments that we've all seen a lot of good in people during this time. Mr. Dixon, do you have anything specific that you would like to see grants used for as far as what could be done to help recover? I'll give you 30 seconds.
Thank you. As far as grants being used, I like to see the grants used for the people, especially those who have been facing bill shutoffs, electric shutoff, water shutoffs, and evictions. People have been devastated by COVID, as you've seen through the news, social media, and just talking with the people. The grant money, that should go to the people. That's what I would like to see happen with the grant money, is help the community out to ensure that people are housed, ensure people lights and electricity stays on, and ensure that they keep food in their house for their families.
Thank you. If we could keep JD on the screen, please, we'll move on to our next question. This question is about TIF 3. So TIF 3 is pretty well known, but for those who don't know, it's a property tax fund in Belleville that generates millions annually for city government, but it's expiring this year. So supporters say the incentives from this TIF fund help raise commercial property values and help businesses. But the opponents say that the sites that benefit from this TIF district would be developed anyway, that it allows local government to pick the winners and losers of who gets a TIF grant and who doesn't. So should TIF 3 be extended another 12 years? Why or why not? And you'll have 2 minutes, Mr. Dixon.
Thank you for that question. No, I don't believe that TIF should be extended. The TIFs, increase tax levies on schools as well as the people, and they see little to no benefit of it. As you said, the government is able to pick and choose the winners of who receives TIFs and who's benefited from it. And not only that, the people foot the payment for the taxes of the TIFs, and again, they see no benefit of it. There's no reason that Belleville, who has in their last they approved their last budget plan for $123.1 million, should have to use TIF money and make the people pay taxes on it to develop economically in Belleville. I think that we could come up with innovative ideas using committees, marketing strategists, as well as financial strategists, and talk to the small business owners as well to come up with innovative strategies to generate the economy here in Belleville, instead of using TIF money and having the people forfeit their money and what they use for taxes to pay for development that they might not even see any benefit from in the first place. Thank you.
And Mr. Eckert, we'll give you a minute for your rebuttal, please.
Well, TIF has been a mystery for a lot of years to people, and I think the biggest thing is we've lacked education about TIF and its goals and responsibilities. I believe Belleville has used TIF very responsible. I just shudder to think where we'd be if we didn't have the TIFs. Our city fathers chose not to have the interstate come through Belleville back in the mid 1960s. So the mall came along, everything moved out to the interstate, the car dealerships, the big stores, the box stores, the hotels, and Belleville lost a lot of things that we used to have. TIFs have been very good if they're properly executed. We treat our schools extremely fair. You've never seen a fight with Belleville schools having us in court because we didn't treat them fair. And I believe we've used the TIF. I would think TIF 3 should be extended a little bit longer so that we can plan for the future without it. We've had it for 30 years, 35 years, and I think we've used it. I think it saved Belleville. I really do. But it'd take a lot longer than 2 minutes to explain it all.
Thank you. I think we'll move on. Again, Mr. Dixon, we're going to go back to you for this question. You don't actually live within Belleville city limits. So if you win, how far are you willing to go to ensure you will become mayor in the face of potential court challenges? And would that detract from your ability to lead? And then for the other candidate, Mr. Eckert, if you could answer in your rebuttal, Would you follow legal routes to challenge Mr. Dixon's eligibility should he win? Or would you honor the will of the people who voted for him and elected him? Mr. Dixon, we'll give you 2 minutes, please.
That has been a hot topic in this mayor run. My address states Belleville, Illinois. I've stayed in this area for the majority of my life. I went to Belleville East, went to Whiteside Middle School, all within Belleville. Even the area that I stay in used to be unincorporated Belleville up to a point, which I'm not sure at that time. But to take people out of the city limits of where they have, like I said, lived the majority of their life, advocated in Belleville, worked in Belleville, went to school in Belleville. I feel that's unconstitutional to the people that have always been connected to that city. It takes their voices out of that city that they care about, that they love about, and not even allow them to give a voice in political elections or to vote for the people in any way, because we were removed from Belleville, and I don't know when that happened or why it happened, but I do know that it was unincorporated Belleville. And when it comes to winning, like I say, it's the will of the people. That's what civil service is about. It's about working and fighting and advocating for the people. And if the people choose me to be mayor, then I feel that it should be upheld. It's happened before here in Illinois. Mayors have lived outside of the city limits and then moved within inside the city limits, and whatever legal actions that I need to take, or whatever it is that I need to do in order to uphold the mayorship, if I win, then I will do it.
But would that detract from your ability to lead?
No, I'm used to facing opposition. I think leaders, especially political leaders, should be able to face opposition from all angles and still be able to hold a good head on their shoulder and be able to lead the people in the direction that they need to be led in. So no, I don't feel like it would deter me from any of my leadership ability.
Thank you. Mr. Eckert, we'll go to you in just a second. I just want to check. Patty, can you hear us now? And are you with us?
I'm connected.
Great. Thank you.
Goodness.
I'm going to give Mr. Eckert a rebuttal here real quick, but then we'll get back to you with your opening statement. Mayor Eckert, would you like to respond to Mr. Dixon's comments?
Well, this is a unique situation. It's the first time I've seen it in all the years I've voted or run for office. We're going to have to see how the election turns out and then what the courts say. Mr. Dixon lived in unincorporated, is what he's telling me, St. Clair County. So he would have had the township form of government. He could have run for, or he could have, chose to petition to run for office and be a representative. Now I believe he's in Shiloh. I'm not an expert on this, and I haven't studied his particular address, but I was told, and it could be wrong, that he's in Shiloh city limits. So we'll have to see. You have to run for office in the city where you reside and where you reside to vote. And I believe he's a registered voter in Shiloh. And I think this is kind of unique. I love the fact that he cares about Belleville, and I love the fact that he sees that Belleville is a welcoming city to all the neighboring small areas around us. But I think this is a legal question that has to be resolved, because otherwise this would keep happening.
Thank you. Patty, I think we're going to give you a chance to respond to all the questions that we've gone through so far, but would you like to go ahead with your 2 minutes of opening statement, please?
Good. Hello,
Whenever
Belleville. Hello, Belleville. Thank you for being here tonight. As we move forward out of this pandemic, we have two choices. One choice is gloom and doom and status quo, which we have had in this current administration. The second choice is hope and change. Do you realize that we want to have a community where everybody is accepted into the community and that we keep people living here? Unfortunately, our population has declined. And why has that happened? Well, number one, safety, public safety. A family wants to live where they feel safe. And unfortunately, we have less police officers on the street. And that is difficult to keep community members here. Secondly, economic development. With the loss of St. Elizabeth Hospital, Lindenwood University, we have lost a lot of high-paying jobs. And what are we replacing them with? Storage units throughout the city and fast food, which actually is a lower-paying job. Now, number 3, we need infrastructure. I have one question to ask you. Are your roads and streets better than what they were 16 years ago? We need new leadership. We need someone with a vision. We need someone creative. And we need someone that leads with hope. And that is me, Patty Gregory. I hope you consider me as your mayor in April 6, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. I'm glad we have you back. I'll give you a minute to respond to this question, which is about TIF 3 that the other 2 candidates have already responded to. So we know that TIF 3, property tax fund in Belleville, would you renew, or should TIF 3 be extended? Why or why not?
Be a very important development tool for the city. And one thing that we need to remember is that it needs to be used correctly and wisely. There are a lot of questions about TIF 3. First of all, when I become mayor, I will have an audit of the departments and of the TIF spending. We need to stop spending that is unnecessary. And one of the major things that we need to think about is weaning ourselves eventually off of TIF. I will say this, that 70% of the city is in TIF right now. That causes issues for us because we have to have TIF after the review and decide whether we want to expand it or not. And instead of spending TIF money on remodeling City Hall, on placing new carpet in City Hall, it needs to be spent on what it was meant to be, infrastructure in blighted areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Got another one for you.
Okay.
This is also one that the other candidates have responded to, and we'll give you another minute. So we know that businesses have struggled during this pandemic. I'm wondering what you think we've learned from the pandemic, and how can the city of Belleville use government grants from whether it's local, state, or federal assistance? How can the city use those grants to begin to recover from the pandemic?
Well, I want to say congratulations to the local bars and small businesses and things for going through a very, very difficult time. And what I believe we need to do, first of all, is that we need to be working with the county also with grants. I believe we are getting money for the grants from the state, and that is great. But we also need to be working with other entities to move our city forward. Now, I will tell you this, that I heard about the grants for restaurants between $5,000 to $15,000 from the county. And I immediately called Mr. Stubblefield, who is the grant department writer for the county. He gave me the personal phone number to send out to restaurants, and we were able to have them call and get grants. We are going to come out of this pandemic in a very good way because the citizens of this town are very resilient, and we work together. And when you're working and collaborating together, you can move a lot of things forward.
Thank you, Patty. one more for you, and then I think we'll be caught up and we can get back into our rotation. So right when you joined us, we were talking again about Mr. Dixon, who in fact lives in Shiloh, doesn't live within city limits, and he talked about that and said that he felt that he would pursue court challenges and he would do everything it took to become mayor, and he didn't think that would detract from his ability to lead. So my question for you is, would you follow any legal routes to challenge Mr. Dixon's eligibility, given he doesn't live within Belleville city limits? And would you challenge his eligibility to be mayor, or would you honor the will of the people who voted for him? Oh, and by the way, he mentioned that where he lives used to be in Belleville Township limits. Am I right, Mr. Dixon?
I believe it was considered unincorporated Belleville.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Gregory, you have a minute to respond with your thoughts.
Yes, I believe that anybody who has the courage to put themselves forward for public service is a good person. And I also believe that being in unincorporated county area, which is not in the city, could have some difficulty without living in the city and realizing some of the difficulties that go on with the constituents here. But I would like to say that I feel this is a decision that needs to be made with the court system. And also, I would like to say that J.D. Dixon has some good ideas. In fact, there were several that I heard and read about in the newspaper. And he does have an opportunity here, not only to run for mayor, but also to make us all aware of issues that we may not have ever considered. And I thank him for that.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on. We're back into questions that you all haven't heard yet. So here we go. Ms. Gregory, this one actually is for you again, but you will have 2 minutes to respond to this question. And this one comes from a reader. So what do you believe are the greatest contributors to racial inequity, socioeconomic disparity, and other social injustices within the Belleville community? And what are your plans to address these issues if you are elected mayor? You have 2 minutes.
Good question, Kelsey. I actually think that we need more collaboration between our city government and our churches and our residents and all these wonderful 501c3s that we have in our city that we are not being involved with. It's very important that we keep lines of communication open. And I believe that diversity makes a community stronger. And our city government needs to reflect that diversity. And also our city government needs to put out hiring practices and quit with the no bid contracts, because these are issues that stop diversity from being hired. When you do not post a job and you hire friends that you are associated with without posting jobs, that does not give an opportunity for other people in this community to come forth and apply for the jobs. We also, when I am mayor, I will stop the practice of no bid contracts. Not only because I don't consider it fiscally responsible, and even though it is legal, just because no bid contracts are legal doesn't mean that it is right. And when you continue on with no bid contracts, you do not give minority firms and other construction people to apply for the job, to put forth their information for a quality review process. And that is totally unfair. And those are things that I will be looking at when I am elected mayor on April 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to clarify and give you a little, maybe 30 extra seconds. So do you think that those issues that you mentioned are the greatest contributors to racial socioeconomic inequity in the Belleville community? No big contrast.
I think they are things that cause issues with diversity in our city. Everybody wants to feel a part of something. And when you do not allow people to even apply for jobs that are not posted in the city, I believe that is wrong. We also have a disparity between economic I'm talking about salaries. Help me out here, guys. Okay. Economic salaries. And this has caused issues not only in just our community, but in communities all over the country. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Eckert, you have 1 minute to respond.
Well, there's about 3 different actual questions here on the table. I'll go to the racial. I have been personally, and people who work with me have been working on the social justice and lifting up neighborhoods where people have lived in poverty for whatever the reason. I started with a group of people in 1992, the Franklin Neighborhood Association, and it is exactly what you titled. It was schools, churches, businesses, and residents. And that program still goes on today. I was a full-time employee there from 1992 to 96. We did summer day camps. We did after-school tutoring. We did a host of things, GED programs for parents. We did training with computers for parents and kids. We did a host of things. Those programs have started in other neighborhoods, and it's been my dream since I first started to see those in all neighborhoods in the city. But they cost money. And a lot of the money in the state funds and different things have been cut out and in the State Board of School of Education. So that's one topic you talked about. I feel very passionately about we need to do more with, and I have experience with, because I was part of starting the very first neighborhood association in downtown Belleville, and it was very effective. And there's some great success stories that have come out of that program.
Thank you. Mr. Dixon, we'll go to you. You have 1 minute to respond to the question and to the other candidate statements.
Thank you. First, I'd just like to state a statistical fact put out by the NAACP. 84% of Black adults say that white people are treated better than Black people, and 63% of white adults agree by the police. The biggest issue when it comes down to racial and social justice here in the city is police reform, is systemic racism. Systemic racism has been prevalent in Belleville's history for decades. From all the way from the 1900s, all the way to the 90s when Belleville police was investigated by FBI for the unfair treatment of Black people. The Black community feels this explicitly and implicitly. And if you're not part of the Black community, if you're not involved, if you're not in tune, if you're not trying to hear the cry of the Black community, then you're not going to know what's going on. The 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868. And here today, we're still having a protest for Black Lives to Matter, still having a protest for police brutality to end against Black people. The Black community has been marginalized and has been dealt with as second-class citizens in this country since the beginning of it. And in order for real change to come, systemic change has to come to the local government and to the laws to end the biasness that the Black community faces here in Belleville.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Mr. Mayor, would you like a few moments to respond?
I'd just like to say that I don't disagree when we could talk all night just about the city's report card from 60 Minutes in 1992, I believe it was. But I will tell you, the city of Belleville today has tremendously improved our hiring practices. If you look at my department heads, my police chief is African American, the director of economic development is a female African American, our library, and many women in positions of leadership. we have changed drastically. Belleville's become the leader, the model of hiring practices, and that is, I'm very proud of. We also have
Mayor, I think we're going to have to move on. We've got several more questions, but I think we understand what you're trying to say. But I would like to keep you on the screen for this next question, which we received from multiple readers and kind of combined. So, Mayor Eckert, you'll have 2 minutes to respond to this. What's your vision for the Lindenwood University Belleville campus and for the former St. Elizabeth's Hospital site? And what ideas do you have for other vacant properties in the city?
You know, we have been working, many of us, and it's not appropriate for me to say who and what types. I can tell you I have had many meetings, even in the last 6 months, about Lindenwood alone. There's some possibilities. Right now, though, with the pandemic this last year, higher education itself is really pulled back from expanding or growing or taking on new programs. That property is geared for. It was a great university. It was working. It was making it. The leadership in St. Charles didn't communicate with us, and they knocked the legs out from under it. I'm convinced that we've got several different moving parts that we're working on, a number of very successful people, and I've been meeting with them quite regularly. As far as St. Elizabeth's, HSHS had their minds made up. They were moving out. I will say the new bishop and I have had several conversations. He agrees. He's hoping that they will donate that property back to either the city or the diocese, and that we can work together to develop it. But it's going to be impossible to develop as long as HSHS has any hard feelings, because we fought them to try not to move. And so we are working on it. We're meeting. I've met with developers about it, but there's nothing during this year of the pandemic that's taking hold anytime soon.
What ideas do you have for what you'd like to see?
I would love to see some more, and I think the cathedral also agrees. They would like to see a little bit more senior housing, that maybe for a little higher income, because a lot of people weren't allowed to go into cathedral cottages, or maybe even Lost on the Square. They might be a little bit above that level. I would like to see a grocery store downtown. I'd like to see a pharmacy downtown, and I'd like to see it be something that we could, and we've been reaching out. That's what we'd like to see there. We would like to see that the Lindenwood campus would take advantage of that state-of-the-art forensic crime lab next door, and we are looking at some things, but it's just every time we get a little momentum, seems like we've had some horrible things that have knocked us back. But we're not giving up. We're not quitters. Those are some well-developed sites. Those neighborhoods are improved, and we're going to keep going, and we're going to make things happen.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory, we'll go to you. What are your thoughts on Lindenwood University and St. Elizabeth's Hospital site, vacant properties in general? What would you like to see, and what ideas do you have?
Well,
you have 1 minute, excuse me.
I actually was on the committee that brought Lindenwood University here, and I have served on their foundation board and also their community relations board. But today it was rather disturbing in the paper to read about the selling of the houses when no one actually knows what is going to be put in there and how they are going to be developed. I, as mayor, would have looked at some type of negotiation with Lindenwood that before houses are sold, that it would have gone before the zoning board to see if it could be approved. Now, ideas for Lindenwood. I have long thought about a collaboration with the crime lab. In fact, I spoke to Jerry Bladdock about it before he moved and retired to Florida. And I still think that is a strong possibility. Is SIU willing to still be exploring the possibility of working with the crime lab? And also, as far as St. Elizabeth Hospital, where I also sat on their board, We could have a new pool there because we need something for our youth. And besides the fact, with the loss of St. Elizabeth and what we can do with the property, one of the most important things we could
Patty,
do.
I'll give you 10 seconds to finish up here, please.
One of the most important things that we can do is get companies in with higher paying jobs. Therefore, people will want to invest in the St. Elizabeth property. And by the way, I have too heard about cathedral villages, and I think that's a wonderful idea. Thank you.
Thank you. And by the way, for those viewers who aren't familiar with the news that came out today, Lindenwood University recently sold more than 50 homes and apartments near the Belleville campus for a little less than $5.5 million. And we have a story about that at bnd.com. Mr. Dixon, you now have 1 minute to respond about your ideas for Lindenwood, St. Elizabeth's, and vacant properties in the city.
Thank you. One of the policies and one of the changes that I want to bring and will bring to Belleville, if I win mayor, is a and I'm going to butcher this, participatory budget plan, which allows the people to use and vote and use their tax money on projects that they feel will benefit the community, that they feel will bring, will uplift their community. They should have a say-so in their taxes and their tax money that is being spent. It shouldn't be used on TIF money where they don't see any benefit from it. They should be able to have a say-so in it, vote on projects that they want to happen in Belleville. So with that being said, with the Lindenwood campus and St. Elizabeth Hospital site, I feel that through a participatory, but through that budget plan, allowing the people to decide what to do with St. Elizabeth site, to let people decide what to do with the Lindenwood campus. I think that will bring us the best benefit for the city, because the people will be completely involved and they'll be able to decide what happens in their community and how their money is spent.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next question, which will go back to you, Mr. Dixon. So what changes would you like to see in the Belleville Police Department? And do you think the city needs more or fewer police officers, and why? And this is a multi-part question, so here's the next part. And if you'd like to see additional officers, please specify how you would pay for that expense. And if you'd like to see fewer officers, how would you spend the money that was previously used for police? And Mr. Dixon, you'll have 2 minutes.
All right, thank you. I would like to see and want to see, with me as mayor, I will implement police reform. I want to implement a new civilian-led division and committee that will handle calls for people who may need help because of being intoxicated, on drugs, homeless, or having a mental health crisis. And this will take the load off of the police officers patrolling Belleville that are not trained to handle those type of calls, who are not trained to handle that type of situation that may escalate it to a crime, that may escalate it into an incident. I want to also form committees that will address police brutality as well as over policing, especially in the Black community. And I feel with a committee that will hold the officers accountable, that will also bring reform to the police, that will make sure, that will put on their conscience that they just can't use overt force or police brutality, and actually use the training that's there. And when it comes down to either increasing or decreasing the police force, I would definitely decrease the patrols of police in Belleville. As I stated earlier, 84% of Black adults believe they are treated differently than white adults in America, and that comes from a high level of police patrols that undoubtedly, unfortunately, goes after black community, according to statistics and according to what we see. Systemic racism is real. So I want to increase the patrol. I would decrease them, and not only that, the patrol officers that would be taken off of patrol, I would also want to give them the training for what I like to call to handle social issues, and be able to respond to calls, not to arrest or not to detain, but to assist in the situation, to assist the social workers in de-escalating the situation and really finding out what's going on. And in those committees and in this civilian-led division, I want to make sure I have a high have diversity in it, so the Black community as well as the minority communities will have people in there that will be able to connect with them and understand what's going on, and have a connection to that community, so they will not jump to conclusions or act unrationally when and escalating the situation when it doesn't need to be escalated.
Thank you. Ms. Gregory, we'll go to you. You will have 1 minute for your rebuttal, please.
Well, first of all, the primary responsibility of government is to provide public safety. And at this current time, are our police officers stretched too thin? Back in 2017, we had 84 police officers. We now have 73. And we do community policing, and that's great. But if you look up community policing, it's going to be different in every community because it needs to fit our community. And therefore, I do believe that we should have a community policing task force involving churches, involving the citizens, involving teachers, mental health experts, because I think this could help move us in a better direction. Now, with a citizens board, we will have more input from the community. And I do have to say, JD, I like your idea of having social workers involved also. And at this time, I would like to say, we need more police on the streets. We need to prioritize our spending in the community and in City Hall, because safety is a #1 issue, and we need safety to be the economic driver for the city of Belleville.
Mr. Eckert, you have 1 minute to respond.
It's a heavy topic for 1 minute. I'm very strong with public safety. I think our men and women in the Belleville Police Department do an outstanding job. I think building a new police station, state of the art, so they had the tools and the equipment that they needed in the 21st century was a must. And I'm proud of the council for us doing that. Yes, we're down budgeted for 78. We're currently at 73. Right now, it's hard to get young men and women to even take the test to be a policeman after what's happened across the country in the last couple of years. There's problems for the Black community and some of the things that they really are hurting about. And there's problems with the good law enforcement officers who are feeling like they got the weight of the world on their shoulders and not sure if the community stands with them. We have to find a compromise. We have to educate our people more and more about each other and the differences we have. I think we've made some big strides in Belleville, but there's a lot of work to do. I currently believe that, you know, we have to continue to keep communication open. We had some really good neighborhood programs, but they came to a halt this year because of COVID. When we had them activating and we went out to the neighborhoods to listen with our police officers and our aldermen, we were making some good progress, but we got to start over again now that COVID's hopefully getting behind us.
So just to clarify with the question, I'll give you another 10 seconds, Mayor, to respond. Would you want more police officers?
Sure, I'd want more police officers. I would certainly, but we got to be able to pay them. And that's another whole part of this conversation. You can't hire people and then tell them on payday, we have no money, your check's going to bounce. And I'm telling you, it's a serious.
So it seems like we're probably the city's budget is capped at where the police department is at now. But if you could have more, you would.
If I could have more, I would. But I don't disagree with him about social. We need to do more on that, and we do have some going
Mr.
on
Dixon,
that we don't even know about.
Okay, thank you. We're going to stay on the topic of public safety and go to you, Ms. Gregory, with 2 minutes to answer this question. So over the last 17 years, crime in Belleville has been trending down in most categories on average, although it goes up or down from year to year. But people's perceptions, regardless of those numbers, whether it's an average or whether it's a year, people say and feel sometimes that crime is rampant in Belleville, whether that's fueled by discussion on social media or otherwise. How do you feel about public safety in Belleville? You have 2 minutes.
Public safety should be the number one issue of anything. That is how we work in tandem to bring in more housing and how we work in tandem to bring in more economic development. And I do believe that there are ways that we can find more money for public safety. In fact, I would propose bringing up a grant writer for only public safety, for equipment and other things that would freeze up money to be used on possibly hiring more police officers. Now, we have in 2017, as I said before, we had 84 police officers. And because of that, we need to raise that, as the mayor has also indicated. And I thank him for being in agreement with that. Public safety is so important to a community because we need people to feel comfortable in their homes. And when we don't have that, we are giving communities, other communities, the opportunity to take our population away. People move to areas that they consider opportunity cities. And right now, I believe short-sightedness has led to the decline of our opportunity city. And we need a change to move us back in a right direction. And that is what I hope to bring to the table at City Hall. I'm a retired teacher, and you know that retired teachers or any teacher is always in the improvement business. And plus, we are always in the grading business. So it's a wonderful opportunity for us to look over everything in this city and do some reevaluation. Thank you.
Mr. Eckert, you have 1 minute for your rebuttal, please.
Very serious to keep our citizens safe. I also know that social media, as good as it can be, we sometimes exploit a crime or what we think is a crime before we even have the facts that the police get to the scene. Something comes out and they say, oh, shots fired. And all of a sudden people are picking up the phone, calling each other. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Sometimes we're our own worst enemies. We spread doom and gloom before we get the facts. We got to be more positive. Yes, we have problems. Yes, we have crime. But folks, sometimes we sell our city short. We turn off developers because we talk ourselves about how bad things are when they're not as bad sometimes as what we make them out to be. So we've got to get ourselves under control. We can't preach doom and gloom. Yes, we got to continue to always evaluate, and public input's important, but however, we got to trust our professionals, and we have some great leaders in that police department. We have some of the sharpest minds around the area in the Belleville PD.
Thank you. Mr. Dixon, you now have 1 minute for your rebuttal, please.
Regarding public safety, as into Patty's and Mayor Eckert's credit on their interviews, and what you just said, crime is, as you said, has been on the decline in Belleville. So to increase the police force, to increase the police presence, as I stated earlier, 84% of Black adults believe they are treated differently by police. To ignore the effects of systemic racism and the violence that is caused on the Black community is dangerous, especially in Belleville, and especially regarding its history, as we all well know. Public safety is something that must be upheld in Belleville, and it needs to be upheld fairly and equally. Again, to ignore the Black community, to ignore what we've been going through, and to want to increase the police force that has marginalized the Black community, I feel is dangerous, especially in today's time. The decline of crime in Belleville shows that we do not need increase of Belleville Police Belleville Police patrol officers. We need to increase the social workers. We need to increase the people that will help those who are dealing with mental health crises and is connected to that community.
Thank you. We're really running out of time here, so I think we'll do one more question, which I will give 2 minutes to Ms. Gregory, because you didn't have quite an equal opportunity at the beginning of the debate. And then we will move forward to our closing statements. So, Ms. Gregory, census estimates show that the city's population has declined in recent years. What would you do to stop the downward trend? And you have 2 minutes to respond, please.
I would try to lower the 4% increase we have had in violent crime. I also would want to promote the city in a more positive direction. And I believe this can be done by putting marketing budgets together and making it move forward on promotion. We are losing population because we are losing businesses. We are losing new home startups. By the way, in 2006, we had 213 home permits for new construction. In 2007, it dropped to 131. Then it dropped to 56 in 2009. And since that time, we have never gone over 50 again. And in fact, our housing startups for new construction this current year, I believe in the mailing from that I received from one of the candidates, was 33. People like to have clean streets. People like to have overgrowth cut back. People like to have new business and new opportunities. And unfortunately, if we do not improve that, we are not going to be moving our city forward. And I believe that is why we need a change. We need a change because in the past 16 years, we have not had as many developments. We have lost a hospital. We have lost a university. And that is because of short-sightedness and selling the city short. Excuse me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Eckert, you have 1 minute for your rebuttal, please.
Well, I respectfully disagree with Ms. Gregory about losing a hospital because of short-sightedness. It was because of the management of HSHS wanted to, unfortunately, walk away from the city of Belleville after 142 years of doing ministry here in hospital. Lindenwood was totally out of our control. We had some Belleville people who were on that board and saw it falling apart, but didn't even bother to tell the local administration how bad it was getting. And I talked to a staff member yesterday who was on the staff and said, Mayor, he said, I'm so tired of you getting picked on because the Lindenwood left during your watch. He said the employees didn't see it coming because they were successful and they were making it. We've got to continue to deal with a lot of things, but we've got to learn to be positive about our community, folks. We cannot preach doom and gloom. We got to preach about opportunities. And we've got to preach about the good things that we do. We've got a great town here, but we're giving the impression every time I turn around, we're talking about all the bad things that happen. Let's spend a whole evening or a whole week or a whole month and talk about all the good things that have happened. And I will tell you, during my watch the last 16 years, we built 2 new shopping centers. We've totally turned our downtown around. People love to come to downtown Belleville. And in 2005, when I took over, it was dead. I'm not saying I did it.
Mr. Eckert, we'll give you a couple more seconds to wrap up and then we'll move on.
Me?
Yes.
I just want to say, and I know I'm raising my voice a little bit because I get aggravated during the last couple of days and weeks of what some people say repeatedly. But we have a good city. We have good people, and we just need to promote the positive. I'm not saying have our head in the sand about crime.
Thank you, Mr. Eckert. I think we need to move on. I would like to squeeze in one more question, but Mr. Dixon, please give us your thoughts in 1 minute about the downward trend in the population.
Thank you. The downward trend in the population. When I said I was connected to the Belleville community and the issues in the Belleville community, that involves also the crime-free housing ordinance that the Belleville community and Belleville government enforces. That ordinance is rooted in systemic racism. That ordinance started with Ronald Reagan on his war of drugs that was targeted against the Black community. The marginalized the Black community has been found in court to attack the Black community as well as domestic violence victims as well, from chilling them from calling the police in fear of being evicted because of the ordinance and the issues of it. This ordinance also targets 1 out of every 16 Black households out of 1 out of every 41 white households. This ordinance evicts families and Black families out of resident. I believe that decrease is contributed to that. I believe that decrease is contributed to the lack of diversity, to the effects of systemic racism in Belleville. And in order to increase the population, in order to bring that back, I feel diversity. I feel like unbiased laws and legislation reform will increase the population and draw people back into Belleville because the drastic change in the social makeup of our country now.
Thank you. We will get through one quick question. The benefit of not being on network television is we are on our own platform and we can sort of do what we want. So let's squeeze in one more question and then we'll go to closing statements. So, but you'll each only have 1 minute to answer this last question. So we'll start with you, Mr. Dixon. What steps would you take to bring more businesses to Belleville, particularly on the Illinois 15 corridor and Main Street? 1 minute, please.
To bring more businesses to Belleville, I would want to form a committee of small business owners, financial specialists, as well as marketing specialists, to help not only increase business, but increase the diversity of business in Belleville, and to come up with innovative ideas for marketing strategies, to invite and to entice new developers in, to increase the development, to increase the economy of Belleville. I believe these committees that will be powered by the people will raise the economy up and bring more business to Belleville.
Ms. Gregory, would you have 1 minute to respond to that question, please?
I've already been bringing business to Belleville for 20 years as a volunteer for Art on the Square, as the founder and executive director who had built a great team that took something from nothing to #1 in the nation in 6 years. And by the way, we have been named the #1 art show in the country more than any other show. And we are competing against 6,000 people, our art shows. Now, why do I say that? Because Dr. Spellman even said in the B&D article that Art on the Square was the reason they came to Belleville. I will also tell you, when we bring in the population of 70 to 80,000 people to view the wonderful things that this town has to offer, that has also built economic development. Our economic impact in this city for 19 years has been an estimated $38 million. That is economic development. That is bringing in business, and that is moving the city forward. Thank you.
Mr. Eckert, what would you do? What steps would you take to bring more business to Belleville, particularly Illinois 15 corridor and Main Street? You have 1 minute.
Kelsey, we've been working on a plan, and we're going to continue to work on the plan to bring more business on 15 from the Shrine all the way to Route 15 at Eckert's, which is no relation to me. I will tell you that we're criticized for some of the things we've done. Some of the opportunities that were talked about in the past are back on the drawing board after a tough year of the pandemic and some other things, personal things in the one project, a death, etc. I'm still optimistic for Route 15. It's our new front door, but we've had to continue to work on our downtown and our whole long Main Street because you can't let the core of your city die. We got a new Freddy's coming to Belleville Crossing. I've had conversation with the two newest car dealers at both the Dodge Chrysler and the Buick. And they've got some new ideas and some new plans, and they're hoping to see that corridor expand. There's a lot of hope, but as you think about it, we've hit some of these bumps in the road, whether it be the economy, whether it be the state of Illinois having some ups and downs and not paying us a few years ago, or whether it be the housing market that slumped, but now you can't keep a house on the market for very long at all. They're flying off the list. There's a lot of hope. We got hope around the East End, close to our neighbors and friends at Scott Air Force Base. And I work very hard, being the honorary chairman of the Bell Scott Committee, to keep that relationship with Scott Air Force Base. I was criticized for bringing an apartment building on the East End.
Please wrap up your statements, Mr. Ecker. The other candidates only had 1 minute as well.
Okay.
Just another couple of seconds if you'd like to finish it up.
I just wanted to say that new apartment building is being filled with a lot of military, and that's something we've missed.
Great, thank you. All right, we will move on to our closing statements, and each of the candidates will get 2 minutes to share their last remarks and anything else they want to say. So we will start with you, Mr. Dixon. You have 2 minutes for your closing statements, please.
Say thank you to Belleville News-Democrat for having me, inviting me in for this debate to allow the people to hear all of us and to hear what we plan on bringing to Belleville, our platforms, and how we plan on helping the city. So we can't continue down the same path that we've been on. We can't use the same style of old politics that got us here today. We can't. It's not possible. We can't go back to the old ways. We can't go back to where systemic racism has put us. That is something that is prevalent. That is something that can't be ignored there. And I don't like seeing it being ignored because of the high volatility against the Black people here in America and in Belleville. If I were to win there, if I were to become mayor of Belleville, I will fight and advocate for the Black community, for the working class citizens, to put them first. It is something that's been lacking in Belleville. It's something that the citizens and the Black community deserve to have. So on April 6th, if you're ready for change, please write in Jeffrey J.D. Dixon for mayor of Belleville, and I promise you, I will advocate and fight for the people.
Thank you. Mr. Eckert, we'll go to you next. You have 2 minutes for your closing statements.
I want to say again, Kelsey, thanks for taking time to moderate this. You did a great job, and to the BND and Jeff Couch and everyone. My closing statement is this. I love Belleville. I think people know that. I've worked tirelessly as your mayor, but we've only been successful because of everyone. I have outstanding staff. I've worked with some tremendous aldermen over the years, and they all are a big reason why we've been successful. We have a lot more successes in front of us. We just have to roll up our sleeves and work together and quit pointing the finger. My wife and I own a small business here in Belleville. We know what small businesses are going through. We've owned one for quite a few, 21 years now, our one business. Our 4 children have grown up here. They're all very polished and very respected in their own fields. Our oldest son is in the military. And that reminds me every day of what our military friends at Scott Air Force Base go through when they have to send their loved ones off to war. We have sent our son off 9 times already to the war as a trauma surgeon. We're proud of all of our kids, and they all do great things, and they're raising great children, and they too love Belleville. We can do this. We can continue to grow the city, but it takes everyone, and it takes a positive attitude. We got to do this and embrace. I'm always accessible, and I'm very open to new ideas, from meeting with youth as I do regularly to meeting with minority groups when they have issues or want to talk or want to get involved. I want to get more people involved in government, and I've been trying for a long time, but we got to remain positive and we got to just quit pointing out the negative things in town. There's way too much good in this city.
Thank you. And Patty, we will go to you for your closing statements, please.
I want to thank the B&D and Jeff Couch and all the tech people, and especially Kelsey, for monitoring this event tonight. I would like to say that I too believe in Belleville, and I too want Belleville to move in a positive direction. And I have shown my commitment to Belleville with 33 years of volunteering in this community, working for 20 years for free to raise $573,000 budget when we put on Art on the Square. It has really grown since the $98,000 budget we had at the beginning. Through that opportunity, we have put programs totally throughout the city, through the schools, artists in residence, all the beautiful sculptures. But we need to continue positive things in our city. And we need to do that by collaborating and really being transparent to our citizens. I believe Belleville is seriously off track because we have lost so much to the surrounding communities. We need change before it's too late. I don't believe we can afford 4 more years of losing to the surrounding area. We're losing businesses, we're losing families. But what do I offer? I offer change, and I offer hope to motivate people to take something and make it nationally ranked is what I've done, not only as the director of Art on the Square, but as a teacher. I will not be taking any pension. I will be driving my own car to work because I believe that we need to look for money for other things that we can prioritize in the city. You know, Belleville has a 200-year-old history. We are very, very resilient. And Belleville is a big city with wonderful people in it, and it's done big things. And that's what we need to do. And I believe I am the person that can help motivate, just as I have 600 volunteers that come back every year to participate in the wonderful event that brings opportunity to Belleville. It's time to do big things again. So I do hope that you will consider me as your next mayor on April 6th, starting in 2021 with new ideas and great creativity and collaboration. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, candidates, for joining us tonight. I hope that this was helpful to all of our readers and to all of our viewers. And so with those closing statements, that concludes the 2021 Belleville mayoral debate. And again, I hope all the information shared here tonight helps you make your decision leading up to Tuesday's election. And as we said in the beginning, you can find more information about these candidates and other candidates in other races in our 2021 voter guide at bnd.com. So on behalf of the Belleville News-Democrat, thank you so much for watching and have a good evening.